Welcome to the 1 to 1 Million podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. Today, we're going to be talking about the market, the market meltdown, the absolute collapse of the crypto market, what it means, what's causing it, what's like behind this collapse of the crypto market, and what signals we should be looking for to know when we're going to stop collapsing and start heading higher. Or is that even the case? Are we now in a bear market? And is this going to be just 2022 all over again? We're going to be diving into all those details and more, as well as we're going to be diving into a ray of hope, a little ray of sunshine in the midst of the absolute downpour that could give us an indication of what comes next. All right, so Bitcoin officially broke down into the 70K range over this past week. It has been just an absolute bloodbath, but if you've kind of been paying attention to the wider market, it hasn't been just Bitcoin, it hasn't been just crypto. This bloodbath has extended to pretty much everything. We've seen stocks sell off. The markets as a whole are just bleeding, and it's primarily all macro driven. So a lot of people are freaking out about crypto. They're freaking out about their altcoins. This specific altcoin, why is it selling off? This specific altcoin, why is it selling off? When really none of that matters, as we've been talking about for a couple weeks. And the only thing that matters is macro. The entire market is selling off because of the macro picture. Macro is in the driver's seat. I've been driving this point home over the last month. Macro. That is the only thing that matters. That is the underlying condition that is causing all of the symptoms that you are currently experiencing. And until that is fixed, until that portion of the market is fixed, we will continue to have chaos and bloodbaths in the market, because that's what's causing it. And so the crypto picture we were talking about in an OC meeting this week, the crypto picture is amazing. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. If you were to go back 5 years in time and you were to look at, the current state of the market with the Bitcoin strategic reserve, with, Trump talking about crypto all the time, the White House talking about crypto, all these SEC cases getting dropped, the regulatory picture, it is like the best it's ever been. The problem is not crypto, the problem is macro. And so everyone's got to get that in their heads, because until people understand that, you can't quite digest the market correctly, because you're looking at, this altcoin and they're not posting enough in their Discord. And it's like, that's not the problem. Okay. The problem isn't that your favorite altcoin isn't putting the right bullish announcements and they're not paying enough for marketing or whatever. It has nothing to do with what they're doing. And it has everything to do with the way the market structure and the fact that that's so far out on the risk curve. And everything's being dictated by macro right now. So you're having all the risky assets sell off. People are selling their bags. We basically completely round-tripped the Trump pump, and we're back to where we started. So as we have been for the past couple of weeks, we're going to dive into the macro picture. What is it looking like? What's happening on the macro front? This week we had CPI and PPI data come in. This is a linchpin kind of data, because it's telling us what inflation is doing. And why this is important is because right now kind of everything hinges on inflation, okay? The answer to this equation, the answer to how do we clear this macro picture, how do we get macro to be looking good again, comes down to inflation data. And can the Fed cut rates? Can they cut? Can they not? If we have a recessionary outlook, things are not looking good, we want the Fed to be able to front run that and cut rates. If they can't cut rates because of inflation, that's where we kind of end up in that bad outcome, okay? So inflation data peaked up in late last year in 2024. If you'll remember, the Fed was extremely bullish or extremely dovish. They were cutting. They did the 50 basis point cut. And then we had in December, the really hawkish Fed meeting caught everyone by surprise. Markets, crypto specifically, has been down only since literally that day. That meeting, that day, crypto has been down only. That marked the top. And it was the Fed coming out hawkish. They said they were going to only do two rate cuts. By the way, I said we were going to get more than 2 rate cuts. Then the market said we were going to only get 1 rate cut. I still said we were going to get more than 2 rate cuts. And now we are forecasting 3 rate cuts. I think it's going to go even higher. The reason I think it's going to go even higher is because if you looked at what was forecasting that increase in the data in inflation, you could look at Trueflation and see that it actually front ran that data. And it started trending up well before CPI reflected that. So you saw Trueflation data peaking up before the CPI data. And then the Fed came out hawkish. And then what happened after that is Trueflation data fell off a cliff, an absolute cliff. I mean, it went from like 3 all the way down to like 1.2 or something like that. And if you kind of line it up and you look at the lag that currently exists between Trueflation data and CPI data, you can see that even this print that just came in, it's at the very top of that moment right before we fall off a cliff. So the next print, if this is any indicator, should be extremely bullish for the markets and should catch the markets by surprise, where we see this data come in a lot better than I think what a lot of people are expecting, which is going to mean we're going to see more rate cuts kind of projected out for 2025. And that should be extremely bullish. A big catalyst we have coming up is next week. We have the Fed meeting. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, Jerome Powell will come out. He's going to speak. He's going to kind of give us an indication if the Fed is dovish or hawkish. I don't really know what to think about this meeting. If he came out like super hawkish, that'd be really bad and the market would sell off. If he came out super dovish, I don't know for sure if that'll have an impact on the market, just because the CPI and PPI data was very bullish, but that didn't seem to have an impact on the market. So I guess we'll have to see. We have the Bitcoin strategic reserve and the digital asset stockpile information get dropped on Thursday night of last week, I think it was. And we've had a little bit of clarification since then. So we have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. It's going to be made up of the Bitcoin that the U.S. government holds. This is something I've been saying. That's exactly what it said would happen. They're not going to be buying Bitcoin. They're just going to take the Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet. They're going to move it over. On top of that, they're going to come up with kind of neutral ways to add to that balance sheet. So instead of spending money from the government, if there's like ways they can cut or like other ways without increasing the budget, allow them to buy more Bitcoin, they will be doing it. So they're exploring ways to do that. There's been some interesting suggestions on X. Somebody suggested, I guess we have a strategic cheese stockpile in the US, which is crazy actually, because we like every other strategic stockpile makes sense. Besides, there's like a oil and heating stockpile that is kind of weird. But besides that, they're all like normal, like military, medicine, oil reserves. And then there's like the strategic cheese stockpile. So people, and this thing's like billions of dollars, okay? So people, a worth of cheese that's held in caves in the US. Cheese, this is real. I had to look it up like multiple times just to confirm this is a real thing. Cheese, I think it's in Missouri caves, like billions of dollars worth of cheese as like a strategic stockpile for some reason. So people have suggested like selling that off and using that to buy Bitcoin, which would make, I think would make sense. I don't see why we need a strategic cheese stockpile. Anyway, okay, so we have that. Then we have the digital asset stockpile, the digital asset stockpile, which is just going to be made up of all the crypto tokens the government holds for whatever reasons, from criminal acquisitions or whatever. And they're going to need to like be stewarding that. Okay, so they're not going to try to add to it. They're just going to steward it well. They have said on further podcasts that they are willing to sell tokens in that digital asset stockpile. So, for example, they have FTX on their balance sheet. They're going to be open to selling that, and anything else they think that they should be selling, and just kind of holding it, stewarding it as like just another asset on the government's balance sheet. But they're not going to be buying any of these tokens. We've had a lot of recession fears and a lot of tariff fears that are still kind of just like making their way through the market. This is leading a lot of the overall market fear. Overall, the market's fearful. I really do think kind of in the short term, it is oversold. That doesn't mean it can't go lower. It definitely can go lower because people can be absurdly fearful. But I think like by a logical metric, it is definitely oversold. Still, I've been saying that I'm currently holding cash until the trend reverses. So we're waiting for the trend to reverse. Either on the macro front, we're looking for some really bullish news, something to come out to kind of clear up the cloudy skies and give us some clarity as to what comes next. Or we're waiting for just in general the trend to reverse with the market start to head higher. Either of those two things will give me the green light to deploy the capital I'm sitting on and start actually investing again. But until that happens, I'm not buying the dip. I'm just waiting for the trend reversal because it could definitely get worse before it gets better. And sometimes that's how it is. And there's just a lot of uncertainty right now in the market. Now, honestly, there's a lot of uncertainty contributing to the sell-off. Uncertainty around tariffs, uncertainty around are we going to get a recession, uncertainty are we going to get rate cuts, uncertainty about inflation. We need these things to clear. We need that uncertainty to clear up before the market can pick a direction. And I don't know what the threshold is, but there's a certain amount of threshold of like clarity where the market will pick a direction because they'll feel confident in that direction. But right now things are so uncertain that everyone's sitting on the sidelines waiting for that to happen. So you can bet that if that CPI data does come in insanely bullish next print, that'll be a really good sign. And maybe we'll have a lot more to talk about come then. But right now we don't have a ton to talk about because it's just sideways season. Even if the markets start to go up, doesn't mean it's like that isn't a trend reversal. Like give it some time, give it some breath, and just kind of wait and see. Everyone's in wait and see mode, and that is the proper mode to be in, is wait and see. But on the long-term time front, I'm insanely bullish. I think crypto is going higher. I do not think we're heading into a bear market. I do not think that the macro picture dictates, hey, this is going to be a horrible bear market. Everything's falling apart. I think it's just some short-term pain that we're going through, a little bit of bumpiness, a little bit of turbulence on the flight. But ultimately, we're going to arrive at the right destination. Make sure to check out my weekly newsletter if you guys want to get like a weekly update of the content I'm putting out and just some kind of updates on crypto news and different things like that. As always, none of this is investment advice. None of this is me telling you to invest or not to invest or to do anything. This is just my personal thoughts about the market. You should always do your own research and assume I don't think I talked about any crypto tokens, but assume if I'm talking about a crypto token, I probably hold it or own it, especially if I'm bullish on it. That would make sense as a crypto investor that would own it or hold it. Remember, long-term patience and positioning ahead of the masses is the easiest way to beat the market. I'll see you next week.